66 right now in the city of Titusville. Welcome back to the morning drill. It is 8:35. Things will clear out a little bit later on today. Chance of some showers and thunderstorms, possible hail in mid-70s. That's what we're looking at. Welcome back to the morning drill on this Tuesday morning. It's time now for our weekly chat with the doc. Dr. Adam Middleton joining us from Middleton Chiropractic. How you doing today, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
Ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. Last week we were talking, and you actually posed a question to me about our diet, and we were talking about the fact that the government has got a food pyramid that's pretty unhealthy for us, and your question was why, and why aren't they doing something about it? Which actually they have changed the food pyramid, but now they've got 5 equal parts of the major food groups instead of getting the grain down to a reasonable level. But it's a hard answer, and I told you that last week. It's a difficult answer because there's a lot of players in the game, and I don't think anyone really had bad intentions as this all came through. It was just at the time that some of these things were going on, the scientists of the day that were in positions of influence were going down a road that they believed was the right road at the time, and they one of the things that really sparked the increase in grain was the low-fat diet. And up until the beginning of the 20th century, Americans were the healthiest on the planet, and we ate a diet that was very rich in meat. Well, meat wasn't as available to be able to be processed, we'll say, as it is today. At that time, there was a lot more small farm type businesses where meat was being raised locally, and there were a lot better processing of the meat. So there were things that came into play at that time that even not only were we eating a lot of meat, but we were eating a lot more healthy meat than what we are eating today, because it wasn't being raised processed,
right,
fed in a food lot, corn that's not even a congruent food for a cow. There's a lot of aspects that have risen since the 1970s in our food industry that, as we said before, they're really more of a push towards having a bigger yield, not considering whether it's nutritional or not. But the food industry really has a big part to play in this, because when I think we talked about it a little bit last week. When you say to somebody that you need to eat more fruits and vegetables, well, there's no product there. Fruits and vegetables are already a product, produce, but there's no new product, there's no new market to be captured there. But when you tell people that they need to eat low fat, now the food industry has an ability to take that and say, okay, well, we can make this low fat butter, low fat salt, low fat bread, low fat everything, and then they can put that out on the market, and they've created a new market with no competition. Well, that's a great business sense. That's a really good way to approach a business. You've got no competition. You're out there on your own. The new product is something that nobody's ever even seen before, and it's filling a niche that people are considering to be something that's going to be beneficial to their health. So,
are you surprised when people buy in at 100% on the, no fat this, no fat that?
I'm very surprised now, because we know a lot better than that now, but it's still happening. And I will say that I had a patient in the office the other day who was going to a nutritionist, a supposed nutritionist, through her physician, who had her going to this nutritionist to deal with a problem that she has digestively, which is basically a problem that's the standard problem that happens when you eat too much grain, not enough meat, not enough fruits, not enough vegetables, digestive issues like irritable bowel syndrome, and
is this borderline like celiac disease?
like celiac disease, right? And this nutritionist is telling her, okay, no cruciferous vegetables because they create gas. Are you crazy? You know, that's the absolute wrong direction to go. She didn't want her eating like anything that was good. The only thing that this nutritionist wanted her eating was the bad stuff. Bland grains, bread. She was allowed to have bread, but no cruciferous vegetables. So part of it is that there are people who consider themselves experts in a game that they don't even know how to play. They're looking at old, outdated science and information that was mainstream for many years. It's like, you know, if I picked up a textbook from the 1970s and decided that was, you know, everything we knew today.
Right.
And that's what's happening because these people are obviously outdated way past the idea that that's a good idea. But yet it's still perpetuated because that's been the mainstream. That's the orthodox.
Well, it's the way it's been.
Way it's been, right? So obviously we couldn't have been all wrong. You know, one of the things that we were talking about was how did this kind of happen, and Senator Delaney in the 1970s was a head of the government agency that really pushed a low-fat diet onto the public and created the food pyramid that we had up until this last administration, and with grain at the bottom of the food pyramid, and fat being a little tiny part at the top. And Senator Delaney had good intentions. He himself and his wife had read the book that this author had written, that the scientist had written, and it was at that time that the cholesterol lowering science was coming out, that there was lipid research clinics which they did the coronary primary prevention trial, which is the foundation for why so many Americans are on cholesterol lowering medications, which, by the way, I think is completely wrong. And if we'll see in the future that's actually been wrong. We've known this stuff for a long time again, but you know, actually that study is the foundation of why people take cholesterol lowering medicine. That study is the foundation. And I want you to know that the probability of dying from a heart attack was reduced from 2% to 1.6%. Whoopee! Yeah, everybody go out and take some drugs that might hurt you. That's the problem, is that these drugs aren't coming without baggage. You know, a cholesterol-lowering drug is a statin. Statin drugs affect your liver. They shut down the production of CoQ10 enzyme, which is extremely important for all the metabolism in every one of your cells. It's great. It's very important for your health of your heart. So we're taking a drug to supposedly help heart disease that causes heart disease in other ways, and that's the problem.
You know, overall, when you see a commercial on television for this drug to help with this, and you see the 65,000 side effects of that, I sit there and think, why would you even take it if it's going to bring all these other issues when your initial issue doesn't seem to be as bad as what some of these other...
Well, I think that the reason that people will take it is because they have faith. We have faith in science, and we have faith in our doctors, and we believe that they're up on the most recent knowledge and that they really know what they're talking about. And I believe, you know, I trust my doctor, and I want to know that he's looking out for my best interest. The problem is I don't trust the people who are telling my doctors what to do and think and do. with me, because some of these entities here are not really looking out for my best interest. It's let's face it, statin drugs has become an $80 billion industry. This is big money, and the drug companies don't want to lose that. So every time more information comes out, which just recently did, I think it was about a year ago, that said that actually taking a statin increased mortality. You had an increase in mortality and morbidity if you were on a statin versus not. So that means you were sicker and you died sooner if you were on it versus the population of people who weren't.
Wow.
But instead of promoting that and saying, okay, well, maybe we made a mistake, what they did was they put a spin on it. They brought in the brightest press people in the world, that the same kind of people who win elections, and they started spinning that information in a way that made it not seem so bad, and that actually came out in the end, after they put the right spin on it, come out to say, well, there are some issues there, but it still is preventing heart attacks, and you need this. You need don't just stop taking your Lipitor, because you need to talk to your doctor first. And when you went to see the doctor still built his whole foundation on information that was saying that was the right thing to do. Is he going to come back and say, oh, no, we were all wrong? No. I mean, it's hard for somebody to actually come to that conclusion, and that only comes through self-exploration and self-education. Somebody just coming along and telling you, that's not right, when you believed it and you've been preaching it and teaching it to people, and then me come along, Dr. Middleton comes along and says, that's not right. You guys got to stop doing that. They're like, yeah, you're a quack, And the reality is that's why it's so hard to change. It's not because anyone's out there trying to cause heart attacks. It's because there's an industry there that has a huge profit margin to lose, and a whole business basically. And then there's the people who are in charge of our interaction with those products, that have been educated from the same information that has allowed these companies to get to that point. I mean, it's not just the drug companies either, because I don't mean to, I didn't even want to go necessarily into the Lipitor issue or the statin drug issue, although it is a huge issue, because what we're talking about here is food, grains, and the fact that we've changed our diet to a low-fat diet based on this false information that came out from a statin study that only actually showed a 0.4% difference in your health and heart attacks. And yet we have for 30 years been on the statin train and the statin bus, on the low-fat diet bus, and we've been, with the pedal to the metal going downhill as far as health goes. From the point of obesity and heart disease and just all the diabetes, and we're getting sicker and sicker and sicker while we follow this false, really inconsequential. It should have been inconsequential study, but it had a good following because there were some people who were influential, like Senator Delaney, who him and his wife had bought into this diet. They bought the book. Actually, Senator Delaney quit the diet after a short period of time, but he still was influenced enough by that to push for these changes in legislation that created the new food pyramid in the 70s that put grain on everybody's breakfast table. And then you have companies like Post, which were, these guys were brilliant marketers, and they marketed this as a importance of being able to be healthier because they pushed that it made your brain. It was good for your brain because it had folic acid in it. It was good for your teeth, and they basically marketed that this was a health benefit from eating more grain and less fat. And then the convenience of it, and the other health aspect is the sanity of it. This stuff was clean. It was able to be packaged in a sterile environment, and we let's face it, we're still running from germs. You can't get away from them. You can't. That's not the right way to go when it comes to germs. Making yourself as healthy as possible so that you have a good relationship with a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria and the natural flora that's in your environment is the only way to beat the germs. Continually trying to run from the germs and, oh no, there's a germ coming, we got to get away from it, and here comes another one. You live in a sea of bacteria. Inside and outside of your body is just flooded with bacteria, with yeast, with funguses, with molds, and microorganisms are absolutely saturating our environment. And actually, we know for a fact that when you start to change that environment and make it more sterile, we increase morbidity and mortality. We increase sickness. We decrease health. And that's because you need those. They're part of your natural environment. You got to have them around you or you will not be healthy. So the idea of wiping down everything and the germaphobes, we've got a lot of germaphobes. That's just the worst way to be. You talk about being unhealthy. That's the most unhealthy person is that type of person. They're going to be sick all the time. When you take and wipe down a counter with bleach and you keep sterilizing everything, what do you think is the only thing that's going to survive on that counter?
Well, the stuff that you're not going to be able to handle.
Exactly. Things, life always finds a way. In science, we know that if you do something to try to kill off a population of bacteria or funguses or yeasts or whatever, there's going to be a couple of those little suckers that are going to survive. They're going to mutate. They're going to adapt. And they're going to open up a sequence of genes that's able to produce a protein that's able to make them be able to adapt to that in some way. Once they do that, they're going to be capable of producing a whole new colony and reproducing that adaptation to fit it. We don't just adapt randomly when you get a little blue baby and a little red baby, and the red baby's easier to see, so he gets eaten, and the blue baby's the only one that reproduces. That was the old way of thinking, and it's wrong. Epigenetics proves to us that based on our environment, our body can adapt and change its genes at a moment's notice over a single generation, not just after you reproduce the next generation and you mix the two together and you get a mutation that changes something. That's a way for those things to change. But it's not the only way, and it's actually not even the most significant way. Because Homo sapiens have changed so much, but Homo sapiens have not changed their gene sequence in 40,000 years. So, your genes and my genes are very, very similar, but obviously you and I have different things. And some of those have genetic links. There are different health issues. And those issues have nothing to do with changes in our sequence of genes. It has to do with which genes are wrapped around histones and which ones are opened up and being more active. And you and I have talked about this in previous segments. Yeah. So the problem with these grains and the way we eat our grains is we degerm them. We take the wheat germ out of them, which is probably the only part that really we should have. And we put these into our system. Well, this is a seed, and a seed doesn't want to be digested. It wants to make it through your digestive system and lay on the field with a nice pile of fertilizer that you just had so that it can grow. and reproduce itself again and again. Again, life always finds a way, right? So because there are no ways for this to protect itself in there, it has chemical deterrence to your digestion. So by eating grain, it actually reduces your digestion. It increases inflammation. The grain that does get digested completely converts straight into sugar, so it causes the pancreas to produce insulin, which increases your insulin levels and decreases your ability to handle the sugar in your body. As that insulin goes up, sugar is stored then in the muscles and the fat and lowers your sugar, and then as that lowered sugar state goes, then we go into that hypoglycemic situation or low sugar issue where you're kind of in a daze for a little while. And so what do you want? You want more sugar. So where do you go? You go and you grab some more sugar. And you eat some more, you get that calorie increase again. And so since 1970, you and I and all of the people that we know pretty much have been starting our day with a bowl of refined grain and starting off that hypoglycemic roller coaster right first thing in the morning. So why do you think there's more heart disease now than ever, and since 1970 exponentially been increased? Why do we have more diabetes now than ever? The incidence of obesity from 10,000 years ago, when it started with them starting to plant grain in rows and eat it and settle down into sedentary societies, till 1970 was about 12%. From 1970 to today, do you think it's raised or lowered?
Shot up.
It's shot up. It's shot up so quickly and so harshly that it's now an epidemic that is bankrupting our healthcare system. It's bankrupting our government. It's bankrupting our lives. And we're continuing down that road as if it's, well, that's what they've always told us.
That's the way it is.
That's the way it's always been, yeah. So, my goal in doing this segment with you is to start getting people to start thinking, for one, to get information out there, two, and to help start to promote some sources for that information. One of my friends, a patient, sent me this. It is the Primal Blueprint for Fundamentals for Lifelong Health, and this comes from www.marksdailyapple.com, and it's a great source for education, for information. Mark's Daily Apple is a information on health and nutrition that really promotes similar diet that what I've been talking about. You know, the primordial diet, the one that we have adapted to, the one that's most healthy for us is the hunter-gatherer type diet, something that's going to have rich in meat and protein, especially wild type if you can get it, lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of nuts, things that we would be able to find if we were out there hunting and gathering, and not the kind of stuff that that allowed us to settle into these cities and communities, the farming revolution that happened 10,000 years ago.
The thing I keep thinking when you walk down the aisle, heart healthy, heart healthy, heart healthy.
Yeah. If it has that label on it, you can pretty much say that's probably exactly the wrong thing. The low-fat, heart-healthy diet has just created the biggest reversal of what it was intended to do. And I don't think, as I said, it wasn't like, hey, let's go out and cause heart attacks.
Right.
It was the idea that they had just created a new market. And the chemicals in our foods are not being tested to see if they're safe for us, by the way. There was a basically an inquiry into the food industry to see what are the chemicals safety in these foods. And this was back in 1970s too, around the same time. And they created a zero tolerance that anything that was in a food that could cause cancer couldn't be in the food. If they had caused cancer in rats, then it couldn't be in the food. Well, in 1994, the food that caused so much havoc for the food industry that in '94 they had that dismissed, taken out of law.
Wow.
So at that time, in the '70s, I think there was a book that had food additives in it, and there were like 800. In 1994, there was another book written, and it was like 8,000. And I believe that the most recent compiled statistics on it is that there's over 12,000 different food additives. So even if they had tried to take them out, you got 12,000 different food additives that have never been studied, never been looked at as to whether or not their safety is there, if they cause disease. So we're not just talking about the food now that's already we know is probably not the best thing in the world for you, grain, especially the defatted wheat germ grain, or the taking the germ out of it, not the defatted, but now we've got 12,000 of these chemicals that have been approved by the FDA that are out there on the market, and the FDA only is allowed to look at these chemicals to see for their safety after they've been out. It's just some really crazy things going on in this whole picture, and it doesn't make me feel very good about the food that we're eating and the safety of it and effectiveness of our ability to maybe take it away. The only thing I can say is that it is very important for you and me as parents, as Americans, to who have a Freedom of Information Act and can actually get out there and find out things that are alternative to what some of the mainstream has been telling us through the years.
And parents
that we're putting our nose to the grindstone, and we're actually learning, and then we're taking action on that information and doing things in our own homes that help our family to be healthier and less diseased, staying away from the things that we know are causing some of these healthcare crises in our country. It's got to be a grassroots effort. It's just not going to come from the top down. It just isn't.
Dr. Adam Middleton joining us each and every Tuesday morning. For more information, just visit Middleton Chiro, and you can find the Facebook page right off his website. You can ask the doc, and I think next week we'll get into maybe some questions.
Sure.
And we'll go from there. Doc, always a pleasure. Wealth of information. And, you talk about getting that information. One of the things people could do is contact your office, schedule an appointment, get checked out, have a conversation with you, and go from there.
Yeah.
Adam Middleton every Tuesday right here at 8:30 on The Morning Drill. Greatly appreciated. And again, even if you go to our website, you can click the link, go right to his, ask the doc, get all this great information. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning. The Morning Drill. Have a great day, everybody.